It is hard to even imagine the pain and suffering endured by a loving family whose little boy was stolen from them in the blink of an eye, with no explanation as to what happened to him. That is the reality William Tyrrell's family has lived with for 12 months now, going about their daily lives as best they can, while waiting, hoping and praying for the safe return of their beloved boy. As they prepare for the 1-year anniversary of the day their lives came to a crashing halt, William's mum and dad have given their most detailed and harrowing interview yet. I'm Leah Harris from the Daily Telegraph, and I began by asking them to describe exactly what happened that fateful day in Kendall, Friday, September 12, 2014.
It was just any other normal day for us when we visit Mum. We got up, the kids were playing, we started to talk about what we were going to do for that day. One of the things we needed to do was to go see my dad's grave. He passed away in February 2014, and just as things had moved through for us, I hadn't had a chance to visit him since we'd put him into the ground, so we were planning to do that. And then really my husband needed to, he had a online meeting, and the reception at Mum's place is pretty bad for using the internet, so he had to go somewhere where he could do that. So, and just working around that, and when we expected him back home, so it was really just planning what we were going to do for that particular day. And then, and then our world really just fell apart when I realised that William was missing. It's hard to put into detail what happened, because I've had to say it so many times to so many people. And I know that there are so many people who want to know the exact detail and those sorts of things, but it's just so personal for us. It's just that's our last time with him. I feel like I want to keep a lot of those really special memories for us personal. They're our family memories, and I know people want to know more, but I've just got to keep some things private and special. But it's just, as the time goes on with the whole thing, it's just really hard now to keep talking about what happened on that morning.
Essentially, it's like any other day that you'll be doing things. In this case, it was us arriving to Nana's house, and get up in the morning, and everyone's running around getting toys out. We're preparing for the day, making breakfast, and as you heard, I had to do a conference meeting. But the internet access up there is pretty awful. So I had to go into town, and I had to also fill a script. Only to return to find that my day and essentially my life and my family's have been turned upside down with William. Us not knowing where he was, police being called, searches happening, and just in complete disarray. So it was just an awful day.
The pair said they both cling to their last memories of William, playing with his toys in his Spider-Man suit that morning.
The last memory I have of William when I left that morning, I can recall seeing him taking all the toys out of one of the cupboards in Nana's room and bringing them all out in the playroom, and that was fine. And he was just starting to get into. I think he'd already actually got into his outfit, his Spider-Man outfit. Running around, completely excited, completely so happy to be where he was and with everyone there, and just his playful, vibrant self. Again that magnet of attraction to other people.
When William's dad returned from town that day, his life was suddenly turned upside down.
I just finished doing what I was doing in town, near Laurelton, and had driven back, and I drove in the garage, and then my wife appeared with William's sister, and she looked at me and she said, "Is William with you?" And I looked oddly at her and said, no, he's not with me. I've only just got home. I've just got back. And then that's when my wife said, I can't find him. We can't find him. And so I immediately launched out of my car and began looking furiously as to where he was last seen, and then expanded on my search and for him, calling out his name and racing around the perimeter of the house firstly, and then starting to go through neighbouring homes. In fact, some of the homes even back onto the cemetery where my father-in-law had just been buried only earlier on that year in February. But I then began what seemed to be a moment of sheer madness of running around, yelling out his name and searching and trying to find him with no outcome, only to then also be, I guess, the police, Chris, who was the first attending officer to be, I guess, he arrived and said, look, it's all right, settle down, calm down, we're going to find him, and then off I ran again in my search for William.
When they realised their little boy was missing, it did not take long for their minds to turn to the worst case scenario, a parent's worst nightmare.
The first few minutes were extraordinarily frightening. Really, really frightening. It was. It's like, this can't be happening. This is not possible. How can a child just disappear? And it seemed that I was expecting any second that he'd been found, or he'd fallen down a hole, or he'd wandered off, or something like that. But as minutes, the clock started ticking and ticking, the longer and longer, it seemed like this was going down a path of extraordinary situation where I thought that a child like this doesn't just disappear without not being found in the first couple of minutes, maybe 15, maybe 20 minutes. And my thoughts did very quickly turn to something more sinister has occurred here.
Because he wasn't one to wander off, is that correct?
Look, he knew, William knew his boundaries, and even with his mother when they went shopping or did things, he'd extend his boundaries, like any child does when you go to a shopping centre or things like that, and he'd wander off, but he'd still keep you in sight. He knew that, and that's a security measure that most children have. But he would never do that, never ever do that. And he'd always make sure that he could check in, he could see where you were, and he could see where you were, and vice versa. But he would never, ever do anything of this nature, ever.
When I walked around the side of the house and I just looked out, all I could think was, why can't I see him? Why can't I hear him? And I'm thinking, where's the red? Where's the red? Where's the red? Why can't I see the red? I should be able to see red through bushes. I should be able to see the red. Why can't I see it? And I stood there, and I don't know. I think I turned around in circles, thinking, "Why can't I see you? Where are you?" And that's when I started yelling out, "William, you need to talk to me. Where are you? I need to hear your voice. Mummy can't see you. Where are you? Talk to me, talk to me." And I just raced around the house. I must have raced around that backyard for maybe 10 minutes, and I've raced back up, and I've said to Mum, "He's gone." She said, "What do you mean he's gone?" And I said, "I can't see him, I can't find him." And I just thought, somebody had taken him. I'm standing out there and I'm looking down past the trees, down at that street, thinking, I can't see red, I can't hear him, he's gone, somebody's taken him. I just knew somebody had taken him. It's just so highly unlikely for William to go walking off on his own. He doesn't have that degree of confidence.
Thinking of what the little boy would have been going through at that moment is almost too much for them to bear.
He would have been absolutely petrified. Absolutely petrified. He would have just... I don't know if he would have screamed. I don't know if, everybody's got an inbuilt self-preservation mechanism, and, we've learnt in the last 12 months that children have that survival mechanism for children as humans, it's at your highest when you're a child. And I don't know if he thought, I've just got to be quiet and go along, but I tell you, he would absolutely have been beside himself, thinking, why are Mummy and Daddy not here? Why aren't they coming to get me? Why aren't they here? Why aren't they looking after me? I mean, he'd fall over and he'd hurt himself, and he'd be saying, hurt, ouchie, ouchie, ouch, ouch, ouchie, ouchie, and it was all about cuddles and comfort and kisses and I love you, I love you. I mean, he would be wanting that from us, and there's some stranger who has him, and all he would want from us is safety and comfort and to take him back home. And he would be absolutely petrified. And whatever this person's done with him, I don't know, he would be absolutely, he'd be scared out of his wits. It'd just be awful. Awful.
With the anniversary upon them, police finally decided to reveal new evidence about the abduction, including 2 cars William's mum saw parked across the road from her mother's house just before he was taken.
I realised that night that William went missing that I had actually seen 2 cars. When we woke up, I always open up the sliding door that's on the veranda looking out back down Benaroon Drive from Mum's place. And as I opened it and I walked out, because there's normally a kookaburra that comes up to the fence, onto the balcony of the veranda, and I sort of just say hello to the kookaburra. But I'm looking out over the veranda, and I see 2 cars, and I see these 2 cars just sitting there in the road. And my first thought was, oh, that's odd. I looked at these cars thinking, why would 2 cars be parked on Benaroon Drive? And I looked again, and both these cars had their driver's side windows down, and I just looked again and I thought, oh, that's weird, because they were parked in the middle of 2 driveways. And, and I had direct view of them. They would have had direct view of me, because if you park there, you can see up. And I thought, it's odd, and went back inside and didn't think another thing of it. And then we just got, and then the events of the morning take over in terms of breakfast and getting dressed and all of those sorts of things. And then the next time I saw those cars, William and I were playing in the garden, and we were playing chasings and things like that. And I remember just looking over I just remember having this feeling and looking over my shoulder, and they were still there. And I've looked a bit closer, and I don't think I couldn't see anybody inside, but I remember looking at these cars thinking, why are they still there? And the driver's windows were down, and I'm thinking, they're so close together. And it was really odd, because in the whole time that Mum and Dad have lived at Kendall, there has never, ever been cars parked on that street. Ever. It just struck me as completely out of character. When you look at a picture and you think that picture just doesn't make sense? It didn't make sense. Because normally what happens is people come in and park in driveways, or they park close to the house. I mean, these driveways are huge. To park on a road, then walk down a driveway, probably take you 3 or 4 minutes. So it just didn't make sense to me. But, I'm in Kendall. Why do I think it's an issue? Because Kendall's not the city. And I kick myself. I kick myself in terms of why didn't I note down the number plates. But the logic part of me says, you know what, in Sydney you'd write down the number plate. In Kendall, there's no reason to write down a number plate. It is one of the most safest towns in New South Wales.
And given that it's been, a year and the owners of those cars haven't been identified, is that what makes you think that it's even more likely that they're relevant?
Well, I think they're relevant because they may have seen William. They may have actually seen what happened to him. Because when Chris Rowley came up, he was a responding policeman from when I called 000. I actually walked across where that white station wagon was, because I met him on the road. I'd been racing around with a couple of the neighbours, looking for William before I called 000, and after I called 000, we went back out again. And as Chris Rowley's coming up Benaroon Drive, I'm on the left-hand side, standing near where that white station wagon was. I've walked past there and flagged him down and said who I was and, outlook, William's, our boy, etc., etc. And I didn't remember that until coming back from the airport, because we collected my sister from the airport, and I remembered it that night on the way back that there were two cars there, and I raced down to the command van because they'd set up a command centre in the backyard, and I raced down there and I said, I've remembered the two cars, and I described the cars to them and and all that sort of thing. So either they're involved, or either they've seen what's happened, and we just need them to come forward to say, this is what we saw.
So were they gone from your memory? Were they gone when you realised that William had gone missing? Were they not there anymore?
I realised that they weren't there that night when I remembered walking across the road to see Chris Rowley in his car coming up.
So sometime between when you saw them when you were playing with William?
I definitely saw them with William, yeah. And I think I was just so focused on finding William that all I could think was, this is what William looks like, this is what he's wearing, this is what was happening when I last saw him. And I was frantic. We went through everybody's house. Two neighbours came out to help me look for William. When I realised, I raced down the road because I thought maybe if he's walked down the road, there's a house there that's got a swing set. I thought maybe he's going to play on the swings. One of the women didn't go to work. She phoned work and said, I'm not coming in, and she stayed with me the whole time, running around trying to find him, William. And then I reached the point and I thought, he's not on this estate, I have to phone the police. So we'd been looking for William for I thought a really short time, but it turns out we'd been looking for him for a really long time. And the problem is, when you're panicked and you're shocked, there's lots of stuff that you don't remember straight away. And I remembered this detail that night. Those cars were not there. They were not there when we were looking for him.
Experience part 2 of our in-depth interview with William's mum and dad on the Daily Telegraph website tomorrow, where they go into heartbreaking detail about the effect this has had on their family, as well as delivering an emotional message to William's abductors.